So I've asked my art journaling students to start pulling things out of magazines that appeal to them because I want their pages to become more about themselves. So here I had started doing the same thing, and I've sorted things into words or travel or architectural. And then I had made a pile of things that were similar, basically in color. So all of these things had a little bit of yellow in them. Trying to figure out how I'm going to place them on my page, try different things, tear off extra pieces, like I'm going to grab a ruler here and make that one smaller. I had found a quote, so I knew that I wanted everything to have plants or flowers in them. So once I've decided on placement, I'm going to use some Pen Tart Decoupage varnish and glue to get everything put on the page, but I also want to put a coat of that decoupage varnish and glue over both pages entirely and then dry them completely. I'm adding some tape here mainly for texture in the background, but also I know I'm going to be putting a lot of water on here, so I want to make sure I put some tape in the center just so that the rest of the book doesn't get completely saturated. I'm choosing 3 colors that are in my photographs because I want to start bringing all of these together. I have yellow in every single one, and then there's a green that is on the yellow side in each one. There is purple in the one that's on the bottom right. So I'm just going to introduce a little bit of that. So your colors will vary depending on what's in your photographs. So basically what I'm doing is I'm spritzing my page with a little bit of water. I also have some water on my palette, which I keep dipping my brush into. I want more of a watercolor effect here because I want the colors to blend together, and I don't completely want to cover up all my words at this point. Also, you should notice that when I use a color on one page, I also use the color on the opposite page. Also, I have a paper towel handy so that I can dab off any excess water or too much paint. Now I'm going to add some white acrylic paint. I'm putting it on with a silicone brush, but I'm also going to use my fingers and a little bit of water to blend everything together. Really trying to get all of this page to become a bit more cohesive and not seem like just separated, glued-on magazine pictures. As we keep layering, it becomes more opaque, so you're not seeing as much of the background as you were before. And I am drying in between layers because there are some things that I don't want to blend together. At this point, I suggest you add some stenciling. I chose to use the Timber Brown color from Stays On, and the Stays On ink is permanent when it's dried, so when I add more liquid to this later, that won't smear. I also used Turmeric from Iron Orchid Designs right there. Now what I'm hunting for is a stencil that I can use with some modeling paste. I decided to choose 2 different ones. I'll add the name and the brand of each stencil and put those in the description later. I'm using Pen Tart's modeling paste and that same silicone brush to add the modeling paste through the stencil, but you could use a palette knife as well. The raised stenciling gets added to each side of the page. I want to make sure that I have the same design on both sides. The most important thing when using modeling paste is to clean your stencil immediately, as well as whatever tool you're using. But because I'm going to use that same spatula again, I don't have to clean it so quickly. I'm also adding this stenciling to both sides of the page as well. The other thing is I'm trying to not put it on very thickly at all, but that is mainly because this is during a class and I need it to dry really fast. I'm also using the excess paste on the spatula to add it to the page just to create more texture. I didn't note that the reason why you want to clean your supplies immediately is because the modeling paste is going to dry quickly and it will be very hard and difficult to get off later. The modeling paste needs to be dried completely before this next step. I'm going to use some water-soluble oil pastels. These are activated with water, but once they dry, they are permanent. I chose to start with the purple, but you'll start with whatever color appeals to you. I'm trying to bring out the purple that's in the flowers in the photo on the bottom right. I'm spritzing the page with water, and then I'm scribbling on some of the pastels. Then I will dip my brush in a little bit of water and move the paint around. Sometimes I spritz with some more water so that it will run. I love the drips, but it's a little hard to get on camera. I also have a paper towel handy, and I am dabbing in multiple times, partly to take off some of the color, but also to take off the excess water. I don't want my pages to get completely and totally saturated. And of course, as I mentioned previously, when I introduce something on one page, I also introduce it on the other page. I added a little bit of green earlier, and here I'm trying to add a different color green, but it just was not the right color. It got a little too turquoise for what I was hoping for. So you will just keep experimenting. You could do this with watered down paints as well, possibly gelatos. Actual watercolors would work great, of course. I work with products that I sell in my booth so that people can get hands-on experience using these products, and then that'll help them know if they want to purchase them or not. The oil pastels that I'm using come in a basic set, and then there's a rustic set, and I've used a combination from each one. I do notice that there's a lot of water gathering in that center portion, so make sure that you dab off the excess there. At this point in the art journaling class, I really want my students to make it their own. Add whatever marks or extras that they want to add. If they want to add more color, they can certainly do that. Here I'm inking the edges of this page that I cut out of a magazine. And I'm also using a little bit of the turmeric ink from IOD to tone down the white that's in there. Then I'm going to glue it to a piece of craft cardstock and cut it out with some decorative scissors. Otherwise, it was just too flat on the page. There was no contrast, so you couldn't really see the words. They were blending into the background just way too much. And in order to create a little bit more contrast between the background and these words, I inked the edges of the craft paper as well. Now it gets really into becoming your own, where you're going to start adding mark making. I chose to do a little doodle here. I did a loose leaf. My drawing skills are not the best, so loose and imperfect is totally up my alley. I also tried to pull out some of the flowers from this picture, but that drawing didn't come out great. So it's really light. I didn't enhance it, so hopefully it fades into the background. I used a gel pen to make the doodles and some of the marks before, but now I'm using a Posca pen in black, and I'm just making different marks along the page. You'll also see me hesitate where I just kind of move the pen a whole lot, but I don't actually put any marks down. I added some outlines just along the outer edges of the page. Now I'm going to glue down my phrase, and I'm using the heavy body gel to do this because it's such a thicker paper. Again, clean your tools immediately when you're using heavy body gel or the modeling paste. You decide how much mark making you do. I would have liked to have added some more, but I was kind of tight on time and needed to move on with the page. So I like to create shadows along the edging, and I used the black water-soluble oil pastel for this and a lot of water. The left side got a lot darker than I wanted, so I kept adding more and more water and using the paper towel to blot off the excess. I find my pages go a bit dark, and I was really trying hard to keep this one light, but I think I add a lot of shadows and make it kind of grungy. So in an effort to try and lighten things up and also bring out the detail in my stenciling, I wanted to try and add some white paint to the peaks of the raised stencil. I didn't quite achieve the effect that I wanted, and the reason for that is because my stencil wasn't really raised enough, because I was trying to keep it so thin so that it would dry quickly in class. So you could consider making your stencil thicker if you have the time to allow it to dry. So I chose to use some Pen Tart wax paste, I think this one's called Sparkling White Gold, to hit the tops of the stencils, and I also put it in some other places to bring out some texture. Now I'm going to use some torn paper to cover up the things that I do not want to have wonderful splatter on. Splatter is always a great way to finish off your page. I did use white, and I think I actually added some gold splatter to this as well. So that's my page for this month's art journaling class. I do wish I had had some more time for mark making. I would have enjoyed adding some more of that to this. My goal this month was to introduce some of my new students to the raised stenciling with modeling paste. So please let me know if you try that technique. I'm Jengi with Louisiana Creations. Thanks for watching.